Hello, hello, y'all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, this is another Saturday, and take a look right here. Like, it's pretty nice. It doesn't feel to be as humid as it could have been, as it has been. um, it's pretty nice today. So, I apologize. I'm hopping on a little bit later today. This Saturday just kind of took me, and I ended up sleeping later than usual. So I'm a little bit behind, but here I am. So, y'all, I want to talk today about Black cool without Black burden, okay? Or cultural appropriation. Okay. So, I want to first ask if you got your coffee for our coffee chat this morning. I would suggest that you enjoy this video with a hot steaming cup of your favorite. Um, yeah, but let's get into it. So, also, like, I hope you're well. I hope you're doing well. I hope this week has been kind to you. I hope you've had the opportunity to be kind to someone else, a lot of someone else's. Um, this week, Justin Bieber. I know, like, are we really gonna talk about Justin Bieber today? We are. I also am eating a cookie, y'all. Let me tell you about these cookies. If you're interested, I am addicted to oh my gosh, it's called Struggle Beard Bakery. And it is a small black owned um, bakery where these humongous cookies are small batch, right? Small batch baked, um, and sit out like in fairly reasonable time. And the owner is a black man, military. And I also believe that he has worked within the anti violence field. Very funny, hilarious post. He just loves to bake. He loves to bake. And, it makes me think about the ways that with the work that we do, folks who, whose jobs are service provision oriented, servicing the folks, supporting people who are experiencing trauma. Like, there's like really simple things that we really need to just be happy. And I think that this was just always a passion of his. The cookie is large. I'm not gonna put the whole cookie up here because I don't have the whole cookie with me. I can eat a half a cookie in one setting and I'll be fine. But it's so good. So if you're interested, I think he's on Insta at like Struggle Beard Bakery. Like, can't make his beard connect. He has a struggle beard. It's hilarious. And the little emblem I think has a logo has a struggle beard too. It's right up my alley. So um and he has cookies like the Idris Elba. I'm down. What's up? What's up with that? So mhm. mm. But anywho, Justin Bieber, y'all. hmm So the Biebs, as I like to call them, had a week today. This week, a week today. He unveiled a new hairstyle today, y'all, and that was no. What day was that? Today is Saturday. Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday. He unveiled a new hairstyle. He has dreadlocks. Um, and the country is split in half over this, right? I'm sure y'all torn up about it. Um, so there's a lot of commentary about the Beeps and his hair. And so there are some folks who are like staunchly defending him, and it's like people should be able to wear what they want, people should be able to do what they want. This is a free country. And then there are other folks who are like, nah, not that. No. So uh earlier this week I did on Insta, I have a show that I do called Top 3 Mistakes White Folks Make. So it's a segment, it's a series of segments is what I would say. It's not necessarily a show. Series of segments that come together every time white people be caught white peopling, i.e. doing some shit that just shouldn't do, have no business doing. Are things that are tone deaf in nature or things that exhibit your alignment with whiteness as a strategy, right? In a construct. So, um, I did a talk on the beeps, and I ended up like crazy enough. Like last night, I'm in this like small time, big small deal to me. Instagram beef with someone who insisted I am now racist and called me a grand wizard. And let me tell y'all, as a black woman from Mississippi who understands how the clay works, that's hilarious to me. Um, and but because so I did my thing, and this Insta person called like Empowered Voters or something decided to make Justin Bieber a topic of discussion, and you know added my content that I did because I actually ended up doing two videos about the beeps, and it was so interesting because it ended up um yeah, ended up using some of my content or at least referencing my content to look through. Um, and people were quite upset. And so the conversation is still going on. So I just wanted to bring it here because I think that there's so much. There's so much here to unpack. So the beeps. Do I think that in general people have the ability to do whatever the hell the people should have the ability to do whatever the hell they want to do unless they're not hurting anybody? Yeah, sure. People who is there a such thing as people who appropriate other people's culture? Yeah. hmm People who do whatever they want without hurting people, can they also be accused of appropriating someone else's culture? Yeah, because they're actually doing something that is hurting people. They're not helping, right? So when you culturally appropriate, you run the risk of at the at the grand scheme of it, you run the risk of hurting people. On the lower level, you run the risk of not helping people, which is kind of the same for me and registers in this very similar fashion for me. So I talked about this from the framework of whiteness and white people wanting black cool without black burden. And so the book that came from, because y'all know I'm all about the books, right? Thick. So by Dr. Tressie McMillan Cotton. So, in this book of essays, which is the first thing that all of my coaching clients receive in the mail when we begin working together, this is the first book that we go through. I cannot tell y'all how impactful it is to start here with folks. So, this is the first book you get sent because this is my way of assessing kind of where you are and where we need to go next. Um, so, in Tressie's book thick, I'm trying to remember the name of it's called Know Your Whites, right? So, Know Your Whites is what she talks about Black Cool Without Black Burden. And if I can find it, I'm going to read a small snippet. Um, and so, just for background, she talks about this in relationship to the election of President Obama. Um, and why the same people who voted for Obama were the same people who voted for Trump, some of the same folks who voted for Trump, and how that can happen. Um, and so she talked about it in the way of what Obama offered, right? Um, let's see. And she also talked about the elasticity of whiteness in the ways that whiteness contorts and bends itself um, to whatever in whatever way it needs to allow whomever to be white, except for black folks. Um, mm, let's see. I thought that I had labeled it because knowing me, I would have been like, "Ooh, let me mark it. Let me mark up this book." But it seems that I did not. But just fine. I wanted to find the exact page and just read a little snippet from that. Um, but I guess I am not able to find it. So let me do one more look. Such a great line. So just one more look. Nope, I can't find it. But it's in this essay. I didn't mark it, which is wild because I am notorious. Um, I'm notorious for doing that. Like I get in trouble for doing that a lot. But anyway, I can talk about it without it. So in this book, she talks about in this essay specifically. Chessie talks about the reason why white people specifically loved Obama is because Obama promised black cool without black burden, right? He campaigned on hope and was able to give and or sell this version of a post-racial society or the framework of a post-racial society. Um, and all people had to do was vote for him and have hope, and he'll take it the rest of the way, right? And so it's very similar to like people who are breaking new ground. Like it's like, yeah, we're gonna break new ground here. All we need are investors, right? And we'll take it from here. And so people were able to invest in this idea and simultaneously absolve themselves, right? And this was attractive because this was a black man who was talking about America in a way that did not did not I would say fully or did not start this conversation up front talking about the quote unquote black burden, right? What does it mean to be a black American in this country? It means to sit in a country where the genocide of your people are not acknowledged, right? Um, and he wasn't offering that, right? He was also a very specific type of black, right? Type of black, exhibited a type of blackness that felt non-threatening, that felt almost colorblind, and honestly, it's probably a type of blackness that um, differed from the type of blackness that his wife presented as at times, right? And so the she talks a lot about like the strategy of the Obama feeling, right? The Obama effect. And it's really interesting. And I felt it. I had never been able to put it into words. It's a very interesting read. This whole book is amazing. It's a jewel, and it really transforms my clients' um, ways of critical thinking. So if you haven't gotten that, I would definitely suggest that you do. Or you can always just coach with me and get it for free. But so I want to talk about that, right? I want to talk about the ways in which um, whiteness appreciates Black cool without Black burden. And also in this, she talks about in another essay. She talks about this quite a bit. Um, Again, the elasticity of whiteness, right? That is okay. That is that's right up my alley because and I can contort and I can shape and shift and bend myself to allowing that type of blackness into my life because that type of blackness doesn't ask much of me. That type of blackness doesn't expect me to have to get up and do anything different than cast this vote and live in this post-racial society and be able to act as an ambassador, right? Okay. So she talks about this again in another essay. I think that essay is called Black is Over or Special Black, something like that. And so she talks about the ways that, and she mentions like Emory University, she received a degree from there, specifically how academia and Emory, institutions like Emory, work to create a hierarchy, right? Or to support a hierarchy that already exists across the Black diaspora, where there is an attraction for ethnic Black students, but not necessarily for Black Americans. And the reason behind that is that they're able to say that they have Black students and that these are usually the folks who are and they have the numbers, right? But these are also usually the folks who don't complain about inequities because there is not the burden of the history of America and the relationship between blackness and whiteness on American soil that happens when Black American folks come to white spaces and demand equity, right? And so, Black cool without Black burden. So, what does all of this mean? The Beebs. So, the Beebs. So, the discussion again was what is this cultural appropriation? Well, of course it is. Stop it, Beebster. You know that. Um, but the questions that come up or my pieces of this that I'm bringing to this discussion today is, I can't I if he wants to wear his hair in dreadlocks, like I don't that's not what this is, right? Like we don't call this that. So the fact that you're also engaging in a culture where you don't understand the nuances of why there are some folks who will not um, call their locks dreadlocks because of the racist connotations that comes with that phrasing. Um, but dreadlocks, I mean, he looks dreadful in them to me. Um, so there's that, right? There's this piece of him uh wear it, do your thing, do your thing. But I think what is important to think about um is specifically like when white folks engage with culture, with Black culture specifically, and become enamored with it, there's an attraction to Blackness. There's an attraction to Black culture that non-Black folks all over, right? But there is also an attraction to Black culture from whiteness, um, and that it also goes back, right? It because I think that it is an attraction that stems from uh, this notion of ownership, right? So earlier this week, also, I had a client, we talked about, this idea that some people have that Black American people don't have culture. And so I'm like, ha, is it that Black American folks don't have culture? Or is it that we are still a part of a system where anything that is created by Black American hands is perceived to be done for the entertainment, the success, the co opting of others, the co opting from whiteness, right? And so is it that we don't have culture, or is it that everything that we create is automatically perceived to be in ownership to whiteness because we're still perceived to be in ownership to whiteness? Um, and I think that there's some connections here, right, that exist between this conversation about culture and this conversation about beefsters and the cultural appropriation. What we do know is that Justin Bieber has made a career out of eating off of Black culture. Justin Bieber came in surrounded by the right type of Blackness that will allow him to not be to get the credit, the street credit, right, of being associated with Blackness. Um, Usher was his manager. He was Usher's protege, right? And so this is all about like what happens when we give people too many passes to the cookout, you know. And Beefster is what happens, right? We know that this was a kid whose first album sounds very different than the album that he has out now. And his album is hella influenced, and at this point mimicking Black culture to a point where he has had to come out and say that he realizes that he leans heavily, and his work is absolutely um, a direct is in direct relation to musical influences within Black culture, and that as an ally, he wants to do the work of creating safer spaces and his responsibility, right? What we also know is that the Beebs has also had like he's had some run-ins, right? There was the video where someone found a video where he did a racist joke, right, an anti-black joke, um, before he became, I guess, the Beebs, and he apologized for that and was like, "Oh, I was young and I didn't know any better, and this is that and the other." Um, and so I think that what we see just from him is an example of this attraction to Blackness, this attraction to some aspects of Blackness that exists that seems to be so cool, that seems to be so, you know, something. It's something. I think that there, I think that what the piece that's often missing, right, is the track record. Like people, when people say, "Oh, we got to stop," like people should be able to wear what they want. There's freedom. Like this is America. This is not. There are two different, three, four, eight different Americas depending upon who you are, right? And I think having the space, if we're using those rhetorics, that automatically puts you in a space where you are assuming, you are alluding to an assumption that all people in America have the same freedoms, right? So when people talk about we're all like, this is America, land of the free, you can do whatever you want, that's not true. That's not true. Absolutely not true. Black folks are dying at traffic stops in ways that white people are not, right? When we're talking about, well, what if black people straighten their hair or wear straight hair or wear or dye their hair blonde? Are they appropriating white culture? No. First of all, the fact that you're even going to use that type of language or that type of description lets me know that you think that blackness is a monolith. There are black people here living, breathing, who don't have coily hair. And so they don't have to even straighten it. Like blackness only looks like one thing in these, again, in these assumptions, right? And so blackness cannot just be contained to that. And when we talk about the culture of locks, that is a culture that whiteness doesn't understand. That is a culture that whiteness does not understand. Um, the issue for me is that I don't care how Beebsters wears his hair. I would prefer that he not wear his hair in that way. But the question that I have for him and others like him is, the Kim Kardashians, the Justin Timberlakes, the Miley Cyruses, the Katy Perrys, the Taylor Swifts, and so on and so forth, right? Um, what are you giving? What ways are you taking? Because if you're going to take, what are you taking for? Are you wearing this as a way to resist and highlight and show the privilege that happens when you take pieces of blackness and you place them in non-black spaces, and how all of a sudden it becomes beautiful, right? Kim Kardashian's body is considered beautiful, because it's black features on a non-black body. Um, Justin Timberlake's music, Miley Cyrus's music, Justin Bieber's music is amazing because it's white people using black spaces, black music, black inferences. Um, yeah, like y'all, this ain't hard. This is not hard, and it's one thing to say we're all American. Let's appreciate what we all bring to the table, but if we're not doing the work of leveling the playing field so that all Americans can live the life that you're living, we're doing something wrong, and we're self-serving. And so the question that I asked, specifically, in that space, in that chat, some questions that I want you all to think about, as you think on this throughout the day. Um, is my desire to wear, speak, or act in a particular way tied to a desire to perform blackness without fear of being harmed? Right? Because what we also have to understand is that Justin doesn't have to worry about going through TSA and they check his scalp because he's white. I always get checked. Someone's hand is always in my hair. Always. I am always seen as a potential threat just for the way that the hair grows out of my head. There's legislation that is working to be passed across all 50 states. The Crown Act that is specifically saying, please do not discriminate against black folks for the hair that comes out of their scalp, right? What are the ways? These are some questions I want you to ask yourself across this week. What are the ways that I am or have performed and appropriated aspects of black culture? And what ways do I excuse my behavior, right? What ways do I disrupt other people performing in this way? And last but not least, what do I give back to the people of this culture? Why are you doing it? Because if you're not doing it to liberate me and people who look like me, people who look like me who are being killed for the aspects of me that you find fun and funny, potentially Halloween costumes, right? What are you doing? Blackness is not an adventure that you can jump in and out of and think that there's no responsibility there. There is a responsibility that comes when you choose to step into someone's culture. Stepping into someone's culture who's different from yours, you have to ask yourself why. What are the ways in which you that attracts you to this culture? What in the ways what ways does this attraction, right? Um, or this curiosity create avenues for you to be able to see how you can help to reduce oppression. How have you contributed? Those are the pieces. Like that's what I got this week because that's what's been sitting on me. And like I said, I'm in this whole like beef with somebody. I don't even know who this person is, who is so upset with everything that I've had to say on this topic. And the other thing that I want to also ask you is that what comes up when I'm asking these questions? What comes up when I'm saying that this is a space that you cannot enter? What does whiteness tell you? I got some ideas. Whiteness says, "Fuck that shit." There's no space that I can't enter because there's nothing wrong with curiosity, right? There are spaces where you can't enter. There are spaces that are not yours. There's culture that you don't understand, and even in understanding that culture, that does not grant you a seat at the table. It's like Beyonce's Lemonade album. You know how people like got really like freaked out and was like, "Oh, oh, Beyonce said that this is for black women only." Yeah. Yes, cuz she's talking about a very specific experience that you know nothing about. And so you can celebrate it. You can appreciate it. But you can't join this. This space is not for you. You can amplify it so that other black folks can find their way to it. You can amplify it and allow other people of folks of privilege to be able to see like, oh wow, this is a really great opportunity to gain some understanding. You have access to it, but you don't have access to the culture. And so those are my thoughts today. Think through those questions. Ask yourself those things. Um, I feel like those are questions that you should be asking yourself often, just in general, the ways in which how does whiteness and the construct of whiteness being embedded within this idea of ownership of blackness, how does that perceived ownership give you leeway to excuse behavior for yourself and other folks when they're attempting to try on someone else's culture? Yeah. So I'm hoping that your Saturdays, your weekends are beautiful. I'm hoping that your time this weekend is restful. I'm wanting you to breathe deep. I'm wanting you to ground yourself. I'm wanting you to feel the ground beneath your feet. And I want you to pause. Take time to pause throughout the weekend to just be. Because the world will be there before you know it. Have a really good Saturday. Have a really good weekend. And I'll meet you back here next week. Take care, y'all.